Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another new shell that we haven't tried before, and it's one that several of you guys have requested that I try out here recently. And it just so happens that I picked some up the other day, so we're going to try them and see what they can actually do. So for the shell I brought out here today, I got some of the Federal copper plated buckshot loads, but these ones are the 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 16 pellet load of 1 buck moving about 1,325 feet per second. And we have tried a large variety of these copper plated shells in a bunch of different shot sizes and shell lengths and stuff, and generally they are some pretty solid performers. So we'll see what these 16 pellet 1 buck shells can actually give us for today. And for our setup that we're going to be trying them through, I brought out the Remington 1187 here with its stock full choke, which has been a very reliable starting point for us with most buckshot shells. Generally, if they perform good through this, then we should be able to see some really nice performances out of them through multiple different choke combos. So this is our starting point for today. 1187 with the stock full choke should give us a pretty decent pattern if these are some decent shells. So we'll see what we can get. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the big sheet of paper at 40 yards. I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity, and I've got the templates that we can lay up over our target when we go check out our results as well. So let's get you guys to view this target and see just what the Federal copper plated 16 pellet 1 buck shells can give us. I expect to see something decent, but we don't know until we try it. So let's take the shot and see what kind of a pattern they give us. Alright, so that shell gave us 1293 through the chrono. The boss claim is 1325, so we are just a little bit under that boss claim, but we're still within the realm of reason, I would say. Now, we do have a 28-inch barrel, so I figured we probably should have seen the box velocity, but still, 1293 for a 16 pellet load of 1 buck is more than enough. So nothing too weird to see up here as far as our velocity goes, but what kind of a pattern did they give us at 40? Let's go down and check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, it is a little bit of a disappointment right off the bat. Typically, these copper-plated shells are much better than this, even through your standard stock full chokes. Now, for reference, the white dot was my point of aim. The paper is 36 inches wide by about 44 inches tall. We do have all 16 pellets on the paper here, and I did measure, and the farthest 2 points across gave us a 31-inch spread at 40 yards. Typically, out of a stock full choke, with most of these copper plated shells, we were somewhere between 20 and 24 inches of spread, with that 20 to 22 inch being pretty much average. So definitely a little bit of a letdown here. Now, I do think they are loaded a little bit differently for whatever reason than all of the previous copper plated shells we've tested, but we'll look at that more here in a second when we go look at our wad. But definitely not nearly as impressive as what I was hoping to see. It is much more of just a broad and open spread of pellets more than anything else. And to be honest with you, it's really not all that impressive. Do I think we might be able to get more out of it with a better choke combo? Yeah, maybe, but I would have expected more. But let's throw a couple templates up, which might give us a little bit better of an idea of how they did in some more real life type of scenarios. Alright, so here's our 10-inch circle up first, and since I think our pattern was just a touch high, I did scoot it to where I believe our core actually is, and we had 4 out of the 16 pellets within a 10-inch circle at 40 yards. So, not terrible. It's good enough to get the job done for what you would need it to, but I definitely would like to see like 8, 9, 10 of them in there or so, ideally. But let's throw some actual animal templates up here and see how it would have looked in an actual hunting type of scenario as well. Alright, so here's our deer template, and if we were to line it up with where our point of aim should have roughly been, we would have had somewhere in the ballpark of 9 pellets that would have hit this deer, and several of them are pretty much right on the edge, especially down there around his leg. Now, I do still think this would have been a dead deer. You have multiple of them right through the lung area there, as well as another one right through the middle of the neck. So yeah, I do think you would have gotten that deer. But is it an impressive deer hunting pattern? Definitely not. We've seen way better out of quite a number of other shells, and typically we see a lot better out of these copper-plated shells through that same stock full choke than what this one gave us. So definitely not exactly what I was expecting to see. It's good enough, but definitely not what I would call impressive either. It's definitely nothing that I would write home about. So now let's swap over and we'll throw our hog template up just to see what it would look like for those guys as well. I think it's going to be pretty much the same story, but I've got the template, so we might as well at least take a quick look at it. And here's that hog template, and realistically it is probably about the same story. You would have had a couple of them through the lungs, and maybe a couple that might have got into a little bit of spine up there at the very top. So would you have a dead hog here? Yeah, most likely so. But once again, not really what I was hoping to see. So overall here, it was a little bit of a letdown with these, at least to start out with. I think they are loaded a little bit differently than all the rest of the copper-plated shells that we've tested, which definitely could be the culprit here, after seeing this little bit disappointing of a pattern. So I guess let's swing around and take a look at the wad and stuff, which I think might give us a little bit better of a story as to why these unexpectedly performed a little bit different than what we had been seeing out of the rest of the copper-plated lineup. Okay, and here's the wad from that shell, and as you can immediately see, if you've seen any of our other copper-plated tests, this is a full-length wad, which is not typically what we see in these shells. Typically, we get a half-length, where it's a very short, stubby little wad. This is the first full-length wad that I've seen in a copper-plated shell personally, and I've tested a good number of them now, in a good variety of different lengths and shot sizes. So did they change it, or is it just for these particular 16 pellet 1-buck shells? I don't know. But you can tell that it definitely looks like it snagged a little bit on the inside of that choke or something, or maybe the jump from the chamber to the barrel or something. After looking at it here in editing, I think that might not actually be a snag. I think it might have been the corners of the wad being caught up in the roll crimp itself, not actually anything snagging it, because look at how even all of those pedals are. They all look exactly the same, and typically when we see a snag, it's not like that, because it definitely looks like it jammed up a little bit, which could be part of the reason why we saw the pattern we did today, although it shouldn't have gotten caught on anything. As for the rest of it though, we don't have any holes or tears or anything, nothing stuck down in there, so looks good for the rest of it. And here's one of the actual shells, and you can see this one has the black little overshot card on it with a roll crimp. Typically these are just one big star crimp on the top, so there's definitely something different going on here. Different wad, different crimp on the end. Is that a one-off for these 1-buck shells? I don't know. First time I've seen this combination out of a copper plated, and something definitely performed differently here than what we would typically see. So I think it's just a combination of several factors going on here as to why we saw the result we did. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that result right there? Definitely pretty interesting and not exactly what I expected to see. Is it usable? Yeah, sure, you would have gotten the job done if you would have taken it out on a deer hunt or something. But still, that is not nearly as impressive as we typically see from a copper-plated shell. Generally speaking, that 22 inch mark or so is normally where we start off with these shells through a stock full choke, and clearly we are not even close to that here. So is that just a one-off? Or more likely, I think it probably has to do with a few changes they've made to these particular 1-buck shells. Now the rest of the lineup, as far as I have seen, is still the same as everything else we've tested from them. So why did they change it up, or what did they do differently with these 1-buck shells? And is that the only version of them that they changed for whatever reason? Full length wad, generally a pretty decent idea, and the different crimp with the overshot card is not typically what we see. So there's definitely something a little bit different going on here with these, and that probably leads to us seeing this kind of performance. Now, can we get better through a different choke? Maybe the kick's butt kicker or something? There's definitely a real potential of it. So we're just gonna have to try it and see what we continue to get out of these, because that's definitely not what I expected to see for a starting point here. But I guess leave all your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of the copper-plated 1-buck shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen out of them? And do you know any more about if Federal is in the process of changing how they load some of the copper-plated shells or not? Or if this is the only one that's loaded this way, or whatever the case might be? Let me know all your thoughts about it down in the comments. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm gonna get back to it. As always, we got the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm gonna get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.